So this is how it got started. I bought 2 hollow doors at Menards, and then I bought 2 pieces of 2-inch foam, which I cut to fit the doors, glued the foam to the doors, mounted them on top of 3 folding tables, and then painted the foam earth tone. Then it was time to start laying the track. Took me about 2 weeks to get the basic design of the track down with the curves and the elevations, and to test it so that I could be sure the trains could handle the curves and that they could handle the elevations. I used some websites to give me ideas about the track layout, and then I purchased all of the track from Japanese manufacturer Kato. This was phase 1 of the track design, and phase 2 came later. Next, I began working on the mountain using a material that was like an aluminum foil with a cotton base on top of it, which you could shape using your fist in any shape you wanted. After I got the shape I wanted, then I added plaster of Paris so that it would harden and be permanent, and then painted it gray, and then added the earth tones and trees and shrubs and so forth. And after I got the hang of that, then I decided to double the size of it, and again using more earth tones, more trees and so forth, and added the stone entrances and exits for the tunnel system. The mountain has continued to evolve from what you see here as I have added more trees, more shrubs. I've even put a little bit of snow on the very top. One of the most important parts of operating a train successfully is making sure that the voltage is delivered consistently to the tracks. Using wiring running under the table and soldering to make sure that the wiring is soldered in enough places so that the track gets consistent voltage and the train can maintain consistent speed. Also checking for the voltage to the switch tracks so that they can be electronically operated as well. Here I'm testing out to make sure the train is running consistent speed on the initial layout. Once I was satisfied that the voltage from the transformer was spread equally through the tracks and the train was running properly and that it could handle the elevations, I then turned to landscaping. Using newspaper and tape, I formed hillsides and so forth and put plaster of Paris over that to harden it. Then I painted it. After the paint dried, I then put on the grass, shrubs, trees, and that kind of thing. My phase 1 layout was basically figure 8 modified, and so the longest part of it is running through the middle of the 8, the longest straight part. And so after landscaping one end of it, I had to move over to the other end, which also includes the trestle. And again, I used the newspaper rolled up just like I had before, and here you can see the plaster of Paris on top of that. And then once that was done and dry, I painted it, and then applied the grass and the shrubs and the trees and so forth. After completing the hillside here, I decided I wanted to add a ranch, a horse ranch, on a raised area. So using newspaper and plaster of Paris, I created a hillside on which we could put the ranch. And that's what you see here. I also decided that with the hillside and the raised area for the ranch, it created a perfect spot for a pond. As you can see there now, I've started to use a muddy bottom for the pond, and then using several layers of paint and gloss with some techniques to show waves. I created the pond here, and my grandson Jimmy suggested that I cut some people in half and use them to look like they're swimming in the pond, and it worked out very well. One thing I should mention here is the use of grass in the scenery. I use several different shades of grass, all in a powdered form. I apply a liquid adhesive by spray or brush to the surface and then sprinkle on the powdered grass. And then after I'm satisfied with the way it looks, I reapply liquid adhesive by spray or using drops, and that makes the final application. going to back up a little bit and show you the second phase of the track running through the city as I develop the downtown area. You can see the loop running through there, and that's the Miller Brewery right there. And then as the train comes around out of the city, it also has the option of a switch track here where it could go through the commercialized factory area as well. Here you can see how the town derived its name, Boofington, Wisconsin, from our wonderful dog Boo, a yellow lab who passed away while I was building the train. Just for reference purposes, I'm using N scale. That's the railroad that I'm building. And the size is 1/160th in scale. And that compares to HO, which is about double the size, and other scales that are even larger. As you can see, it's very small, but it allows you to have a layout that looks so much bigger. Also here, I would like to mention the use of buildings. About half of my buildings I built from kits, and the rest of them I purchased already built. Quite a difference in price, period. This that you're looking at right here is the Baden, Germany train station, although on my layout I use it as a veterinarian college. It took me about 2 weeks to build. It had about 300 parts. Having worked at Miller Brewing Company for most of my adult life and retiring from the company, I decided no train layout would be complete without a Miller brewery. So I found a brewery kit in London, ordered the Miller High Life sign that flashes on and off neon, and that became my brewery. A little bit about lighting. I use a couple of types of lighting, lamp posts for outdoor, and then interior lighting, little light strips, all of which are wired, and then holes drilled through the table. The wire is run either from the street lamp or from within the building through the hole in the table down underneath. And all that wiring goes to a control center. And from the control center, I use wiring to a separate transformer. A word here about track ballast. In the real world, track ballast, which are rocks and gravel, are used for stability around the tracks and rails when they're laid. I'm sure you've seen it. In model railroading, we use the same thing for realism. Once the track is laid down, we then spread ballast, which is a gravelly kind of powder. It's put on dry. I use a spoon to do it. It's very time consuming. Once done, and satisfied with the way it looks, I then go back over it using an eyedropper with liquid adhesive, dripping it all over until all of the ballast is saturated. That way, when it dries, it will dry hard and will be permanent. There are other options for ballasting. You can use a spray adhesive, but I found that to be really messy and hard to clean up the rails when you're done. I would just add that ballasting, I think, is the worst part of model railroading, and something I was very glad when I was done. In my case, the tracks are about 50% ballast, and then there's about 25% that are elevated that don't require ballast and use like a concrete surface underneath the rail. And then the rest of it is a double track layout that comes with a form of ballast configured in already. Here you can see the downtown area of Bufington, which is a combination of European architecture. Some of my kits did come from Germany and Poland, and also some of the more modern structures as well. Another lake that I added, or another pond I should say, and then the school there with the school bus blinking its lights on and off. You can also see the combination of phase 1 and phase 2 tracking here. My phase 2 tracks running through the heart of the city, and the phase 1 being the original figure 8 that goes around that. Now we're moving from the industrial area more to the suburban area, where you can see there's a farm I added next to the ranch. The barn there with the pond behind it and the livestock fenced in, and then a tractor with a little area that is plowed. Then next to that, a couple of nice homes, one with a swimming pool at the foot of the mountain. And then I also put in a church next to the ranch and a graveyard right there. In order to add more realism, I decided to add a backdrop to the train set. So I found 3 pieces of outdoor photographed areas that I liked that fit together nicely, and built a plywood backing for them and mounted them, and then put the whole thing on the back side of the train set, runs the full length of the train, so that it adds realism with the sky and trees and more buildings and so forth.